All right, we are the tankies have gathered. It's day 289 of the Gaza war. And we've got Mikey, Sina, Joe, Alex, and Nora. And it's been a really eventful couple of weeks since we last got together. Just to list, we were trying to make a list. Joe helped me compile a list of events because we had Trump getting shot in the ear. We had them trying to oust Biden, which may come to fruition and may not. We had Yemen, Ansarallah hitting a security target in Tel Aviv, which was a pretty momentous military event. We had the International Criminal Justice, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, ruling against Israel's occupation in its entirety. So that was an interesting thing. Everybody emphasizes that that's non-binding and advisory opinion. Um, Polio found in Gaza sewage, so that's great. And Israel hitting Hodeidah, I guess, yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. Time doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, but it was sometime recently. And there was a Human Rights Watch report too that I think we, in terms of glaring hypocrisies. For me, you guys, um, yeah, I mean, militarily, I haven't done a sit rep in a few days, but the number of massacres that they've done like the Israelis have done like a real like daily tent massacre, like almost every day. It feels like closer to the beginning of the war. And I think it's partly that they have more bombs or whatever that they just got this shipment of bombs and they're just dropping them or whatever it is. I don't really believe they have some strategic reason for intensifying bombing. Like they have the same long-term goal they always have and they drop bombs on everybody that they can. But I also think it's a little bit of a strategic switch from that being all they did at the beginning of the war. Then they did the ground invasion and they attacked all these hospitals and they did all this fighting. And it seems like now they're trying to move back towards all they do being aerial bombardment again. So there's not, they want these corridors, um, and they're still fighting in a couple of areas, but they want to kind of just be able to massacre whenever they want, and that's like the military plan for the future is like to just continuously be able to bomb Gaza whenever they feel like it. And that's why what happened with Ansarallah bombing Tel Aviv was like, for me, it was like, okay, so here's a resistance escalation in response to like, you're not going to be able to turn this into just a forever war because if unless you're willing to bear a forever war where periodically your capital city also gets bombed, um, and possibly more intensification along those lines. So it was, and then the other thing that like, yeah, I mean, personally, it's like been completely normalized in my house where like one of us will just be like crying, like just sitting and crying, and like the other spouse will come up and be like, "Oh, yeah, do you need a minute?" Okay, and then we just kind of like compose ourselves and move on with our day. But it'll be like, um, that's become totally normalized. And then but with Yemen and the war with Yemen, it's been interesting to see the way they talk too is so it's such a direct answer to so much of the hypocrisy. Oh, sorry. I wanted to say that about the hypocrisy because like there's particular interventions that the pro-Israel people make that feel like a real assault on one's dignity or whatever. And for me, the one that this week was when the IDF posted a tweet where they said, "This is where people work. This is where people have a coffee. This is what they're doing." And it's just like the IDF, after bombing everything in Gaza for 10 months, is like wants us all to be appalled by the closeness of all of these civilian targets in Tel Aviv to their targets. And lots of people answered that. Lots of people were like, you shouldn't have put your security targets next to all these things. Ever heard of the human shields argument? Whatever. Like everybody noticed the hypocrisy. Um, but it was just like, just how, like, it just that one was just like how stupid. There's always this like, how stupid do you think I am? Kind of anger that I feel, and that was one of the times. But the way the Houthis talk, like Israel's talking point was that it was a Iranian drone. So there's this thing I sent you guys on the group chat from the from Ansarallah's from a general from Ansarallah, Abdul Salam Jahaf, and he says so that they're the talking point being was an Iranian drone and these are all Iranian proxies, and uh, this general from Ansarallah says, whoever says it's an Iranian drone, I tell them, yes, it is Iranian. Whoever says it's a Syrian drone, I tell them, yes, it is Syrian. Whoever says it's an Iraqi drone, I tell them, yes, it is Iraqi. Whoever says it's a Hezbollah drone, I say, yes, it's from Hezbollah. Whoever says it is a Yemeni drone, and it is, I tell them, yes, it's purely Yemeni. It was made specifically to discipline the Zionists, and it was created by Sana'a of history and civilization. So it's just like they're just not, they're not going to be pieced apart. They're not going to be separated. Their solidarity isn't going to be broken. They're like they rise and fall together, and they're not having it. And it's just like a totally clear and righteous kind of enraged response that they've constantly had. And a lot of the things that they've said from the beginning have been really striking to me, and this was just one of many. Like they were, after Hodeidah was bombed, they said something like threatening us with war is like threatening the sick with health, like we're yeah, like this is what they're talking as if this is what they always wanted, but also like what is Israel going to do that Saudi and UAE and America and Britain haven't already done, right? What they can't, Israel has a fraction of the capacity that the US has. So anyway, that was my that's where I'm at in terms of like what I'm watching and feeling, and that was my couple weeks. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'll just run through some things real quick. The Trump assassination attempt, I think was real. And I think if it hadn't been, one giveaway would be they would have put some young brown kid as the patsy, not some 20-year-old registered Republican. Uh, Also, I think there's a danger, like with October 7th, of overestimating the competence and the of the security services. I mean, there's a whole culture in corporate America that nobody's held accountable for big screw ups. Like we see it with that recent CrowdStrike screw up that shut down a huge part of the economy of the U.S. recently, just the other day. I mean, my daughter's boyfriend works in the States, couldn't even go to work in his hospital because of this, just because there's. So anyway, just you can't overestimate their competence and just corruption and just this whole culture of nobody ever being held accountable. I think that extends to like why hasn't the head of the what do you call the Secret Service, why hasn't she resigned? Like that would just out of if she had any dignity, any honor at all, any kind of code, she would have said, look, this is on me. I'm the top person. I screwed up, right? That just doesn't happen. So, anyways, that's my take on that. On the ICJ, and I think I lumped them in with our HRW. They're just trying to salvage credibility as best they can. I mean, they already ruled in 2004 that the occupation was legal, and it was a more limited ruling, but it's the same idea. It's just I see it as just ass covering. I never get tired of trolling Ken Roth, who ran HRW forever, because in 2015 he called the U.S. government the world's most powerful proponent of human rights. He went into very open public mourning when John McCain died. John McCain, a literal war criminal and a total Zionist, just a scumbag, and he went into very public mourning over his death. So these guys are just looking to salvage what little credibility they might have. And yeah, Yemen is totally inspiring. And they got to be, I mean, the U.S., they got to be shitting themselves that Yemen's going to just start hitting Saudi Arabia, right? And it's a closer target, right? I mean, it's nice that they hit Israel, but in a lot of ways, Saudi Arabia might make more sense, right? If if Saudi Arabia is facilitating attacks on Yemen, then this could really be something that really hurts the U.S. and its economy and the Europeans as well. So they got to be in it. And like you say, the way they talk, the way their principled stand, nothing can be ruled out. So
Well,
so
by
yeah,
the way, the leadership of Ansarallah has been threatening Saudi specifically in all of their recent speeches. They've been like, "You haven't let us access our funds. You have." They're going into like the fine print of the ceasefire agreement and pointing out all the violations that the Saudis have done. And right after Israel hit Hodeidah, the Saudis made a statement being like, "We didn't have anything to do with it," which is like another sign that they're
yeah, yeah. So it's remarkable, like you say, what this small country, war torn country has just their level of dignity and courage is just off the charts. It's amazing. So yeah, that's basically what I got.
Yeah, yeah, just reading some of the statements by Yemenis over the last, what, I don't know, 24, 48 hours, where, people are in the streets celebrating because they say whatever bomb, whatever bombs Israel is dropping on us, those are bombs that aren't being dropped on Palestinians. And like the level of solidarity and I mean, it's more than solidarity, it's sacrifice. It's like it's the most I don't know, kind of clear uh pronouncement of humanity, that the Yemenis are like are they're doing the most for Palestine. And they understand the consequences of, poking the bear. And they're ready for it, and they're doing it because they believe in Palestinian liberation. It's extraordinary and something that us in the West, we can't, as yeah, it's something that Westerners would never, it would never occur to them, to have that level of solidarity with the people who are undergoing genocide. In general, I'm not saying it, except for people in this room and in our audience who understand that solidarity. I'm speaking in kind of general, the general West. Um, that's been just remarkable to watch as it unfolds. Um and then, yeah, I mean, yeah, like as you said, just in the just relentless overlapping massacres over the last 2 weeks, really every day in Gaza. I don't even know where to begin. It's unimaginable, just the way that attention is waning in the West, I think, to the daily atrocities, um, is it's unbearable. I mean, people just don't, if they even cared to begin with 9 months ago or 76 years ago, they just don't really seem to care. It doesn't enter, they're more concerned with Biden and Trump, and I couldn't give less of a shit. And yeah, and it's still, as it always has been, a slaughter of children. Just the amount of children's bodies being pulled from the rubble over and over and over and over again every day, is I don't know, that I've just kind of run out of words completely. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think, whenever Israel is attacked, by, like we saw, by Yemen, or by Hezbollah, which has been, just relentless. I mean, they've the north of historic Palestine has been redrawn. There are, those settlers aren't coming back, which is great. There's a huge boost that I feel where I'm like, okay, there's, Israel is finally facing consequences, not just Israel, but the West and Biden in particular. They're facing the consequences that we've always needed them to face. And then, of course, but the bombings don't stop. And now, the virus that causes polio, as you mentioned, is being detected. There are pools of sewage. The infrastructure is completely obliterated. People are doing everything they can, um, just to survive. I don't know. I'm just kind of in a very I'm definitely in a depressed state these days, trying to figure out how to mitigate it. Speaking of our household, my spouse and I have a rule that only one of us can break down at a time. So we just kind of trade off. And this week it's my week. So we're trying to figure out that balance. But I don't know. It's I I I- I'm just kind of aghast at how just gruesome and brutal it continues to be, um, and how little people seem to care.
Thanks, Nora. Mikey, you're up.
Yeah, I think the the bombings of Al Mawasi this past week, just the fact that they're still dropping like 2,000-pound bombs, just really reveals the the continued lies of the Biden administration, and just constantly revealing Israel's true face, while a lot of so-called progressives or leftists have already shifted their attention and doomed theory of change back to, oh well, let's just get fucking Kamala Harris in and post our stupid ass, coconut tree emojis, as if Kamala Harris herself didn't speak at APAC pledging unconditional military aid and support to Israel, right? Like as if she hasn't posed for photos with Benjamin Netanyahu and ICE agents. It just boggles the mind. But I think something that keeps me out of the abyss from despairing over the current reality is just kind of big and small acts of solidarity, like what Nora mentioned, which I'll get to in a second. But in my own organizing, I've been organizing around shutting down Red Hill and water protection on Oahu. In late 2021, there's this massive Red Hill fuel tank facility that sits 100 feet above our sole source aquifer, and tens of thousands of gallons leaked into the Navy's water supply that connects to over 93,000 households on the island, and also, of course, is right above our aquifer. So I've been organizing families, many of them military, but a lot of them are on civilian housing over old Navy pipes. But just this past week, I got to witness this beautiful, kind of like small but big demonstration of solidarity, where some of these families I've been organizing and training to become their own community organizers, he came up to the mic at a public hearing with the EPA, just trying to demand some of the most basic things. And one of the things that many people like her in these affected communities wanted is not just restitution and transparency and remediation for themselves and their families, but for people to be adequately informed about the situation before they move into contaminated housing like their own. And she mentioned specifically Section 8 housing recipients. And just, the fact that she and her husband are retired, well off, and that was top of mind for her. It's those things that kind of give me hope, but like going back to Yemen, this one post that Nora referred to, I just want to read it out loud because this is a kind of solidarity that I don't think in my years of organizing in community I've ever witnessed before. It's by Ahmed Hassan, and he says, "Is it if these Israeli planes had not come to unload their bombs in Yemen, they would have unloaded their bombs in Gaza. Alhamdulillah, who enabled us to alleviate the suffering of the people of Gaza." And I just think that's just such an incredible thing. Um, that level of sacrifice, that level of solidarity, where you're willing to pull bombs away from other people to your own people, to your own home. I mean, how can you not feel life itself validated through statements like that? You know, um, it's incredible. And like I and many others have said, is like if you know, um, if you're not Palestinian, you don't get to despair. We aren't afforded that luxury. And if the Yemeni people can demonstrate this level of courage and fortitude, then we have to exhibit kind of that bare minimum. So that's how I'm feeling today.
Yeah, that's I congratulate you for getting through that that statement, because for me that the one for me I think I mentioned it a long time ago in a Tanky Therapy. It was like Bukhaiti, one of their spokespeople, was talking to Max Blumenthal, and he said, you know, like, you Arabs feel bad for us for getting bombed, but we feel bad for them because we can do something about it and they can't. Like, you know, so it's the same thing. Like, the Yemenis just keep saying this and doing this. And yeah, it's just like that's it's like the only people that, like, yeah, even their body language. I sent you guys like a video of a guy speaking, and he's like just full of rage, right? And it was before they bombed them, and he was like waiting for the Israelis to bomb them back, and he was like, "You haven't even done anything. Where is it? When are you coming? We're waiting for you." And it's just like those are the. It's like the reason we all feel so insane is because, like, nothing we're seeing has a sense of proportion. Nobody outside Palestine seems to have a sense of proportion about what's happening, except in Yemen. Like, it seems like only in Yemen do they have that. I mean, I don't want to. Nasrallah also had some great speeches this week, and at Ashura, and he said some great stuff about, and they've lost a lot of people on that support front too. And he told the story, you probably remember, not unlike what the one you told, Mikey. He said there was some family, like, you think of like Saving Private Ryan, right? Some family where they lost 2 boys out of 4 boys, and in response, Hezbollah moved the 2 remaining surviving boys away from the front line, and they went and kind of complained that they wanted to be put back on the front line. And he was like, these are the people that that we have. So thank you, Mikey. Alex.
Yeah, Mikey, good job getting through that, man. I'm at the same level of whiplash, right, between despair and then watching these amazing instances of solidarity that we are told by powerful figures, political and media figures in the West, that we're not supposed to support, right? I mean, that's one of the interesting things, that whenever Yemen has done an act like this, the immediate response by these imperial bootlickers in the West to say, well, do you not know what the Houthis are doing internally? Do you not know what they're committing? They're committing some sort of genocide against Sunni communities in Yemen. And I mean, they're just telling on themselves, right? Or they go on some long diatribe about how horrible Hezbollah is. But then, if we could get access to some of like the internal discussion that's been going around in the US government, right? They're probably a lot more honest about what's going on. And I guarantee that in 20, 30 years, when we get access to these declassified documents, we're going to have US State Department people or CIA people talking about, oh, wow, these Yemenis, like, they mean business. They actually practice what they preach. It's the same thing that happened after Cuba helped Angola gain and maintain its liberation, in the 70s to the 80s. And we get these like declassified documents where Kissinger's like, oh shit, like Castro's actually a revolutionary. Right. Piero Glejeses, I think you've talked about his work on one of your podcasts, Justin, right? And he's like the foremost historian that's covered Cuban solidarity to revolutionary national liberation movements in the global South. And he's the one who's gone through all the archives that deal with the Cubans in Angola. And he comes to the very simple conclusion that this was based on actual ethical, consistent application of internationalism and solidarity led by someone named Fidel Castro. And it's very difficult for these imperial monsters to register that, to understand that. And we're seeing that, I think, in real time now. Like remember when Yemen, in really dark moments, when this shit started after October 7th, in really dark moments, I can't remember, you guys can help me remember when Ansarallah actually directly intervened. But I remember it being very dark, and then they intervened. I was like, oh shit, like this can change the situation, right? This can change the genocide. And and then the Americans put together this so-called coalition. And one of the responses I kept seeing online was like, oh, the Yemenis are going to find out why Americans don't have free healthcare, which is so stupid on so many different levels. Like I almost broke my phone, I think, reading one of these, like throwing it on the ground. Like it's a cell phone, and it's becoming more of a cell phone in the months since then. But again, it's because this imperial inability to register the reason and the reason and the motivations of why people like the Yemeni people would risk what they are risking to help Palestinians in Gaza. Like it's an inability to understand that it is internationalism. It is based on solidarity. It is based on a shared project of humanity. And it's weird as a historian to see that inability played out in real time in different social media networks. And that, watching, I've learned a lot from Abdul Jawad Omar on all the, 30 million different podcast episodes that he's been on, but watching him on EI this week, right? And reading his great stuff, like he comes back to a point where he says something like, resistance, and I'm paraphrasing, resistance isn't this perfect thing, but it does open horizons. Like once resistance begins, it's not going to remain at the starting point. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. And I think that's something really interesting to keep in mind. I try to tell myself that because that allows me to not be bothered by bullshit like the HRW report or Masha Gessim's, whatever I can always mispronounce her name, her latest piece in the New Yorker, right? Like it's just that is again going back to an imperial inability to understand and to register what's going on, and they're just simply providing cover for something that is clearly impossible to provide cover for, which is genocide, which is. I shared this political article that I read that was written by 2 trauma surgeons who had gone to Gaza to volunteer. It's like, I read a lot of horrific shit as a historian, like archival shit, working on like drug war stuff and dirty war stuff in Latin America. It was really difficult to get through that political, I was, by the end I was in tears, right? And in rage, like I don't want to feel despair. I want to feel rage. Because despair is not productive, and maybe rage is not like healthy, but at least it can be productive in a way. And it's that going back to a point that we've always gone back to is like, none of us are going to be the same after this. None of us are the same. And the people who are the same are the people trying to cover the shit up. The people who are still trying to excuse and to provide cover for something that's horrific. But in the end, going back to a broader perspective, this is the West, right? I keep coming back to Amos Azer's discourse on colonialism, because this is how the West was created. Like what we're witnessing is what it took over centuries to create something that is called the West. And he's, even though apparently, as I learned online this week, the Foucault gets credit for the colonial or the imperial boomerang. It was Césaire who developed that thesis, right? That about how fascism always boomerangs back on its practitioners. And I think we're witnessing that as well. But the broader point of discourse on colonialism is to show that the immense levels of human suffering, violence, bloodshed, genocide that it took to create politically, economically, socially, and intellectually something that we call the West. And I think that's what we're witnessing right now. We just happen to be living through it, and we happen to watch it like in real time through horrific images. The last thing I'll end on is the image I saw a couple weeks ago of a father sitting down holding his like dead 12-year-old son, who's, I have a son almost exact age, and it's hard to remember about, you know, the importance and the necessity of resistance and rage and all these things that should fuel us against this horrific genocidal entity that's waging all of this violence. But man, it's hard. It's really hard. That I think I sent it in the group chat to you guys, right? That was breaking.
Yeah, we shared that because
yeah.
I think that kid is like the exact build. My son, he's the exact dimensions. Like my son's skinny like that. He's like exact, like he just fits like that. When you said that, I had seen it too.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So what does that say about this so-called entity that we call the West, right? Like, this is what it took to create it. This is what it takes to recreate it and to reproduce it. We just are witnessing it. We're not reading about it in some archival document. We're not reading about it in some, you know, late 19th century anti-imperialist tract. Like, we're witnessing it, what it takes. And this is what, to me, really highlights the significance of resistance being practiced like the Yemenis or Hezbollah, or the Palestinians themselves. You know, I think one of the things that I really got from some of the interviews that drop, what is that, Scahill's new outfit, right, with like the PIJ second in command, right? Like, when you actually listen to what these people are saying, and you're able to understand it, to take it in on their own terms, like the picture of what's going on completely changes, right? When you learn that PIJ militants were reading Lenin and 19th century European writers alongside everything else that they're Islamic tracts, right? Like, that complicates the situation, again, because resistance opens horizons. And where there is oppression, there's going to be resistance. So even though we keep witnessing these horrific things, like, also keep reminding ourselves that we are on the right side. Like, we are on the right side of humanity. We're not providing cover or hypocritical explanations or discussions that seek to justify the genocide that we are witnessing. In the end, that's why
you're just sharing them with us in the group chat. Whatever. Yeah, there's a tag for our listeners, like in our group chat. Whenever someone is about to share one of these, they go, this is some violence, this is some imperial violence or whatever. So, and Alex is usually the champion for finding this rhetorical
I have
violence.
A sickness. I have
and
a sickness
inflicting it on all of the rest of us. Yeah,
it's a trigger warning. Yeah.
I'll start providing I'll start providing the warnings. This is what I'm getting from you guys.
Okay, Sina, you're up.
Hi guys. I don't know what to say. Like the rest of you, my mind has been, it was long sort of de-evolved into some sort of like pink cottage cheese like consistency for a while. Same perpetual dilemma, you know? Like, what do you do with the images of human suffering? You know, like what I heard and a few of you say was like this is, you know, what I heard in like the description of like the boy, the father holding his, you know, the lifeless body of his boy, and how you guys kind of like thought of you couldn't help but sort of like transmute yourself into his body through the video, through the images, through our phones. And, you know, like what I heard was like, oh, this is the line from like crossing from sympathy to empathy, and how like if anyone who spends any amount of time, you know, like empathizing with the Palestinian like liberation struggle, like it's 2 seconds and you're done. You're like, oh, like that's pretty easy. Like that's this, you know, it's like morally, ethically, historically, like it checks off all the boxes. All the things that like are celebrated here in cultural texts, like all the Star Wars rebels and stuff, and like that's them, like that's the model, like that's the real version of it, that like that the US culture industry and the West in general siphons off and creates in its own image, right? Like images of heroism. And yeah, like what the Yemenis are doing is heroic. And in fact, they have been heroics fighting. 2015 their war kicked off, maybe before. It was 2015. Yeah, it was 2015. I mean, they fought 8 years of unmitigated like genocidal war. They were probably subject to like a low yield nuke too, probably, like that famous, right? Like all the images of like all the red triangle stuff goes to Yemeni. It comes from like the Yemeni news. And so in some ways, this sort of ongoing genocidal war that the U.S. and its vassal states across the West has been waging since at least 2001, but really prior. I would say I think it's better to put it at either 79 and like the true sort of like isolation of Iran, or if you really want, you can say 91, because you can say that like 91 is like the kickoff moment for whatever you want to say. It's decades of U.S. imperial hegemony, genocidal war, subcontracted to its various tools, be they proxy armies, be they the Zionist state, its most advanced proxy, obviously. So this is something that, like this moment that we're in, like we are watching a highly condensed, highly accelerated, like Polaroid. I don't know what's a stupid metaphor, but essentially like a window onto what has been happening in this region for a long time. Like the scenes of Gaza that we see, like these are seen, like, or like the images of starving children, like these were all repeated en masse. Like, we remember the videos and remember the ghoulish liberals saying, oh, it was worth it that 500,000 children died in Iraq, right? And so, the immensity of what's happening in Gaza notwithstanding, like even the sort of like compounded nature of this trauma is the fact that like this is one theater of many that we have been funding with our tax dollars directly, like all of us being of the West, but also like we have also been watching this vast, like sophisticated information war, either in one hand obscuring the realities of these wars or turning them on their head and turning villains into heroes, right? Case in point Syria, case in point like Yemen, right? Or altogether just like cheering them on, right? Like Iraq. Like this like we are not just like part of the machine, but we have the machine pointed in our face 24/7 screaming at us, about how this war is just, like Starship Trooper style kind of, like jingoism, like dripping into our bloodstreams every day through our eyeballs. And so like I think that even if people aren't noticing per se, and I can attest to this, what you were saying, Nora, about the drop off in interest, I think the commodity of attention in the West is like a vastly, especially to the economy of the internet. All of us know this, being on the internet as much as we are, is that like the economy of attention is something that's highly coveted. But at the end of the day, it's coveted by advertisers, publishers, but like a small sector. That ultimately attention doesn't do anything as a commodity. If it did, then like Iran would have been a liberal republic long ago, because Iran is like, we get so much attention. But like, and even in the sense that like this is not, Palestinian struggle has gotten attention, right? Sympathy for decades, right? The meaning of that, I don't know. You can argue about, it's overtained time, BDS, this, that, but like, like what, like there's a difference between feeling something and doing something. And we learned that in Yemen, that the cost of doing something, right, means you lose your port, you lose your fuel, you lose, like, and this is after surviving an 8-year genocidal war. So like what's interesting right now, and I'm sure I've said this before, is that we live in this moment where the Palestinian liberation struggle has never achieved, let's say, like let's use that verb for a second, such a greater, like a wider birth of, the cultural sphere, public opinion, whatever, the zeitgeist, whatever metaphor you want to use. But at the same time, the people who are backing them the most, who who are giving up their lives are very reviled, right? And so in this, you have a weird, strange, like, and the 10 months has accentuated this, but I knew this before. Obviously, this was true on October 6th, just as it was the day after, is that like ultimately supporting the Palestinian struggle is a costly endeavor, that it costs your country if you do it with any seriousness, that it costs your country severely. And so this is something that divides, I would say, our solidarity, like as feeling as, and of course there's been consequences for all of you, I'm sure, in your personal and professional lives for supporting Palestine. But these are things that happen at the country level, and what Yemen and Yemenis went through, firstly, just to fight for their own sovereignty, right? Which is what 2015 to 2023 was. It was a war of independence, right? It was either be a vassal, have your guy, Saleh, just do as we say and shut the fuck up and take your position in the world, or do what you want and assert your sovereignty, and then you'll have like a genocidal war right at your door, given to you, like administered through Sudanese mercenaries and the Saudi Air Force, if it exists. This is the like genocidal game, and it played out in Yemen that way. And so like to now be at the point where the Israeli economy, guys, is fucked, and that's because of Yemenis, primarily because of Yemenis. Like that route, closing the Bab al-Mandab and the Red Sea in general, in turn, has devastated the Zionist economy in a way that's hard for us to see. And I think that's the why Zionists need the images of a destroyed port and a pluming sort of like a plume of black smoke. I follow Zionist channels. One of them was like, this is God's wrath. Like the dude thinks an American bomb given to some goon, and not even made in that country, totally dependent, and you think you're God, you think you're acting great. It's like, bro, your God is a fucking Raytheon. It's like Lockheed Martin. So anyways, that's a big long jumble of a mess.
No, it's not. But when I heard that 25 Israeli F-35s flew all the way to Hodeidah from Israel, I was like, do they have 25 pilots that can pilot the F-35? Like, some of those must have been Americans. Come on. 25.
As if the Jordanian Air Force even exists.
Yeah, they say things. I'm like, 25? That's a lot. That's a lot. But it's like, let's say
they're all trained in the US anyways for years and years. Like it's like a PhD. So they might as well be Americans too. God knows they probably speak English. God knows they probably marry American women, whatever. Most of them, we are in like a coordinated war, and America is like the mastermind. Israel is just one.
And Alex also made fun of me because I wrote this fiction story set in Hodeidah where they're running a war crimes tribunal against, they've caught all these war criminals, these Israeli and American war criminals, and they've got them in the dock like Nuremberg. And it's a Yemeni lawyer putting out her opening statement. And Alex was like, the most fictional thing in this is that you start with talking about F-35s successfully flying bombing runs. But I guess the egg is on your face, Alex, because
well, I mean, the fact that 25 made it back to base that's quite an accomplishment.
That's what they should be celebrating, really.
Yeah, right. This notoriously not good airplanes that have the US has spent 35 billion or some crazy amount. Yeah.
Yo, sorry to interrupt, but we have some breaking news.
No way.
That is incredible techie therapy. Biden is withdrawing from the presidential race. He is not running for re-election.
Wow.
I wanted a Biden self-coup so badly.
Oh man.
The latest victim of the Assad curse, Joe Biden. It's over. It's Joe over,
Wow.
buddy. Bashar said you're gone, Joe.
I really wanted him to do a self-coup and dissolve the Democratic Party. I was rooting for that option.
Man.
So he doesn't say what's
so
going to happen.
Jover, guys. It's so Jover.
He didn't say what's going to happen.
He doesn't even know he's been cooed. That's what's so funny. This is the funniest level. Like, America is Veep, and you don't need to say it over and over again, but he doesn't even know. that
Elon
he's been
Musk's
cooed.
Elon Musk's reaction within 1 minute was, "Bro, finally."
Bro,
No, that's a
finally.
parody. That's a parody
Oh, is
account.
it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Elon Musk parody. Ah, well
There you
done, well
go.
done. Thank you, Nora, for fact checking.
You're welcome.
One thing,
I've fallen for that one before.
one
But
thing I love about this is how stupid the AOC and Ilhan Omar, Bernie
Oh
Sanders.
oh my
They're like
God.
Biden
And
dead
fucking
enders.
Bernie.
Absolutely
Oh my
cultish
God.
Okay,
devotion.
actually, can we
Like,
talk about that on Mike?
Yes.
Because I want to give you, because Mikey, there's this debate: are they bad people or are they stupid people? And I just think
Both.
maybe there's
why?
room. Maybe
¿Por qué
there's
no los
room for both.
dos?
things that be true. That's a favorite line, right?
So what do you think? Are we walking and chewing gum at the same time here? What's going on?
So I will grant that it is a dumb political strategy that they've deployed to tack to the right of Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and Barack Obama, for AOC and Bernie and the rest of the squad to cling so tightly to like
They just
M-
circled
Mr.
the
McCain- Bernie's-
wagons to for
Incredible.
nothing. Like what were they getting out of this?
Well, I
I don't know.
do think that it is a real demonstration. I think more than having like bad theory of change is that these are clear agents of counterinsurgency. Like you see so many people who are not just of the online left, but like like actual political organizers and political organization who claim a left tendency, if maybe not an explicitly communist one, following behind their leaders, right? And following this dead end path to support, the co-facilitator of a fucking ongoing genocide.
Yeah.
And I think there's something quite intentional about that. I'm not saying that, it's like Sandy's, CIA, that type of bullshit. I just think that there is a specific reason that people like AOC and Bernie Sanders are still in power, and they have a very particular function to perform in the imperial core, and that's to suppress not just like actual revolutionary dissent, but to prevent people who would otherwise be ready for it to come into a revolutionary political consciousness and to pursue this dead-end electoralist path.
Which
So
is
what
the
do you
role of the
think-
Democratic Party, though, right? I mean, that's been
Yeah.
that's why it exists the last 4 or 5 decades.
But
the
do you
ratchet.
think that this is gonna be harder for them now? Like what's the next sheepdog? Who's the next sheepdog? Because like the old sheepdog is Bernie, and he's old, and he's not gonna sheepdog anybody anymore. But like AOC is the young sheepdog, and AOC's burned already. Like she's in her 30s, and she's, I don't know.
They could run her. They could run her. Maybe not this time, but in 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone
and-
said on Twitter like the Pelosification of AOC is almost complete.
But
Like,
like, is
she's
she
such
gonna be
a-
the one to energize and then euthanize the left wing of the Democratic Party? Like,
Possibly. I mean, I think her the attraction to her is steadily waning. I think
Yeah.
people are seeing her for what she is and
that's
her
what I mean. So they're gonna need
Yeah.
to like have a left, some other
Someone-
left that's
yeah.
anti AOC and says, the AOCs have sold out, but you have to
Right,
trust
but
me. But they're gonna have to do it all again
who?
with the
Yeah.
same talking points. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
No,
gonna
but
be-
the other
yeah.
yeah.
the other
They're
question though is
gonna
like these
be-
olds never wanted to. The olds in the party have like refused to give up power.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
like, what I can't even imagine them putting someone like AOC up, because you still have these. I mean, Biden's he's gone, right? But or he will be. But like, you still, it's the Democratic Party's leadership is extremely old, and famously not fans of someone like AOC. The most generous interpretation I've seen of AOC's strategy and Bernie's is that if they came out immediately to demand that Biden step aside, that was going to turn off a broader movement to get him to step aside, because they're always seen as like the leftist rabble rousers, which I think is like stupid. Like they're not. That's like fourth dimensional
There
chess.
must be
Like
some
I think
money. There must be some money thing. There are probably some.
or they
donors.
believe, or for
Yeah.
me the more disturbing thing is they truly believe that that line that Biden has been the best friend to labor or the most
That's right.
progressive president in our lifetime. I mean,
That's
I think they
it.
believe
Labor
that.
That's it.
Zionism,
It's
America
ideological.
style.
Labor
It's
Zionism,
ideological.
labor Zionism,
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
imperialism.
I think
yeah.
I mean, Bernie has said. I mean,
Yeah.
Bernie, think back to when Bernie got, kneecapped, right? And as soon as it happened, it didn't take long for him to be like, oh, I'm behind Biden. And then people made up like, oh, they've been friends for a long time, blah, blah, blah. That's why he didn't like, raise a stink about how he was forced out of that race. But like, I think he truly believes it. I mean, he's been truly despicable throughout the last 9-10 months. And I think this is a fitting way for him to kind of go away as well.
Yeah.
But I think they truly believe that that Biden is the most progressive president in our lifetime, and I think that's why they quickly rallied around him.
I mean, there's always self-serving beliefs, right? People believe things because it helps them get through their life, right? Not face up to what they are. That's possible, right? But I mean, unionization rates in the States are they're just as low as they've ever been for 40 years. I mean, they haven't budged. I mean, just how do you even sustain some fantasy that Biden's been pro-worker is just crazy.
Or pro-environment. That's the other liberal talking point, is that he's been the most pro-environment, anti-climate change president of our lifetime. And
great.
When one of the first things he did was open up a historic amount of new drilling sites,
yes,
right, for extraction.
Absolutely
ridiculous.
No, it's insane.
But Alex, I think maybe actually the most charitable interpretation would be that AOC and Bernie are actually crypto Maoists who are trying to accelerationists, pushing Biden really hard, knowing that if you stayed on the ticket, it would accelerate towards the decline of U.S.
Now we're back on Justin's fictional terrain. No. This is come on. That's
sleeper cells.
That's basically what Siegebreakers was. Yeah, there's an Israeli spy in the Mossad.
Okay, Mikey, you're right. That is the most generous. You're right. That is the most generous. Yes.
But, okay, I have one other kind of question for everybody. Related to this, because there is this kind of far right pro-Palestine thing, right? So we have Jackson Hinkle and Jake Shields, and then adjacent to that, there's people who kind of navigate the middle of that, which is George Galloway and Scott Ritter. So they're on the left channels, but they're on the right channels too. They're on Judge Napolitano, but so I sense they've all, not all of them, but a lot of them have kind of pivoted to Trump. And they're doing it's almost like they sound like Chomsky from 20 years ago, because they're just they're both bad, but it's a small difference between Trump and Biden, and Trump is slightly better, so we have to go with Trump. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the exact there's only one way to make a lesser evil argument, I guess. And so they're doing the same thing that I've been hearing. So now Trump is the lesser evil and they're doing lesser evilism. And I'm like, I can't believe that lesser evilism is being reconstructed on the right by people who are, claim to be pro-Palestine. It's weird. Anyway, what do you guys think of that?
When that Al-Hindi interview, good. In that Al-Hindi interview with Scahill, he says in the interview with Scahill, actually Trump is better for us, which is interesting.
Who said that? Oh, the PIJ?
The PIJ, Dr. Al-Hindi, right? Yeah. I think that's the accelerationist argument, right? I think so. Yeah, that's how I read it. I mean, it was kind of he would say this is the final mask off moment, and but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more honest representation of the enemy, right? Yeah. Biden just kind of, it's what liberals do. They're as genocidal, they're as maniacal, they're as imperialist as their supposedly Republican counterparts. They just
feel badly about it.
Look better. Right. Exactly. And so what you see is what you get with, whether it's Netanyahu or whether it's Trump. And
well, they lie too. They just lie about different things. They lie about their ability to win. They lie about their unlimited capacities for destruction.
Rafael Correa said back in 2016, he used to talk a lot about how Trump was actually better for the Latin American left. And that obviously was nonsense, right? I mean,
he was wrong.
Yeah.
He obviously. Yeah.
Well, but I don't view them as different, so I don't even understand like who's
Yeah.
better. I'm just like, this is a system. They put up whoever is
It's like
supposed
arguing which is a
the
better
job.
Nazi, right? Which
Yeah,
Nazi
like
You're
and
right.
was better
whatever
than Hitler.
whatever is needed. Like it's obvious that
Yeah.
at this moment, it's better for them to have somebody who's like, you know, really openly destructive as opposed to like crying about it, I guess.
Yeah.
The U.S. empire has always been bipartisan. I mean,
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
I think we're on safe ground to say from the beginning. So, yeah, like from an international perspective, when people look at the U.S., it doesn't matter if they're getting bombed by the Democrats or the Republicans, right? Like that meme
Yeah.
of the couple, right? So the different thing here is that Trump is an anomaly in the sense that his style is different. That's it. Right. Even this whole like supposed realignment that's happening on the right with becoming more pro-worker and less intervention, it's bullshit.
Yeah, it's
It's about
bullshit.
style. It's nothing substance, nothing material. They're just gonna wage maybe different type of wars, forever wars, but it's not, it's the same. It's just a stylistic difference because Trump doesn't waste any sort of time with like ideological sophistry. He just says shit that comes to his mind, and he's also like sundowning, so now he's getting even more
Yeah,
insane.
he's also there is a bit of that going on too, right? Like he doesn't seem as sharp as he was last election to me.
Yeah, no, it's just two different flavors of Soylent Green. Like it's an absurd framing. Like
It's
I think yeah,
people.
we have to exactly we have to expand our rejection of lesser evilism beyond just the liberal Democratic Party. Like it's so fucking obvious that Trump is equally as evil and not actually at the steering wheel as Biden or any other possible Democratic leader. It's just like Ghostbusters, like Gozer, the Gozerian, choose the form of your destructor. Like that is American presidential politics. Ultimately, it's like you can choose, Zool or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it's going to be the same thing. Not going to make any difference.
During the
Wow,
Biden administration,
that was a
yeah,
sharp
that's dark.
analogy.
Yeah.
I love that. Good one, Mikey.
I think the two examples that like from Latin America that they've given credit for Biden's foreign policy is like when Lula got reelected, the U.S. backed his electoral win, and they did something similar in Guatemala. And I'm like, you want a cookie for that? That shit's like baseline. What like it only stands out because you guys have done the opposite for decades. Like, so that's what you should have been doing all along because supposedly that's what you stand for. Whereas if Trump had been in power, who knows what he would have done in Guatemala or with Bolsonaro in Brazil. So I mean, again, that was important, but again, that's baseline. That's what you're supposed to be doing, and we only pay attention. You only get credit because of the long history of U.S. imperial intervention in Latin America. But no, I'm totally on board with Mikey's was it Soylent Green analogy? I think that's. I think in the U.S., I think political organizing has involved trying to break that duopoly that doesn't just exist in terms of political power, party, but in terms of ideology, right? Like you talk to Americans, and ideology is whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It's like no, let's bust that a little bit.
Right, and to the majority of self-professed Democrats, I think probably all of them, the liberal boomer class in this country, they don't think that Biden or the Democratic Party should suffer any consequences for the literal genocide. And that is that's ideological to me. That is that's something that needs to be reckoned with. I don't see any way out of that one. That's an easy one, except for like re-education centers. Once the revolution is in full swing. Yeah, that one is just I still we hear that argument all the time, like well, we still this is what AOC and Bernie and Ilhan Omar were all saying, well, we still have to stick by Biden, or whoever's now going to be nominated, and no qualms about his responsibility, and the Democratic Party's responsibility for the genocide of mostly children in Gaza. It's mind-boggling, but also not. Like if you study this, it's like, well, that's just part and parcel of the Democratic ideology itself.
Does Genocide Joe actually know that he's been leading a genocide?
Oh yeah.
I think that's
Because
the one
Oh,
thing that he's
no, but
very
his
clear on.
decline,
Yes.
his
I think
decline has
No,
been
he knows.
long.
I know a lot
He
about
knows.
dementia.
Oh,
Sadly. But you're in and out. Like
Yeah.
when he's lucid, and he's himself. And
Yeah.
those are the moments when he's
but it's been a while
genocidal.
since he's been lucid.
Yeah.
Well,
He's had
you
that.
know,
He's
I
had
think
that
he
like
spent his last
Civil
moments
War
of lucid.
veteran 1,000-year stare for like a year and a half now. Easy. Like
Sina,
he's
I've actually been trying to pay attention to this, and he is never more locked in
Yeah.
when he is talking about genocide. Like
When he's talking about how he's a Zionist.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you see the light come back on
Yeah.
behind his eyes for a
Yeah. That's
brief,
exactly
brief
right.
flicker of a
It
moment.
animates him. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he
Yeah.
loves
Just
He
it.
told
in the
that-
same way, you know, like when you play like a certain type of music for
Yeah.
people, you know, the viral videos, like that's Joe Biden. Like he's back home for that.
He
one
remembers
brief
that
moment.
song perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he falls out of time like Billy Pilgrim, you know, in Slaughterhouse 5. It's just in
But
and
the
out.
monkey with the symbols in his mind like goes away when it's about genocide, right? Like when he like locks in.
Yeah.
Well, he did that interview with that Speedy Mormon guy from Complex, and the guy asked him like, "So you're a Zionist?" And he like, he totally locked in and gave an answer as to why he was a Zionist and what it meant for him. No, like I agree. He like knows what he's doing. Sina, you're Genocide
he's not
Joe.
governing though. Like he's not governing. His wife is supposedly like this regime. His role in this regime is pretty minor. Is my point.
Well, I think U.S. empire has been on
Basically Reagan,
autopilot for
too.
a while. It's
Yeah,
structured that way. I think U.S. empire is structured to be kind of like on autopilot, regardless of who's in the presidency.
This is
Right?
this is the
So-
tweet. This is the tweet by Caitlin Johnstone that I was thinking of when you were talking. Inside Biden's head, there
Oh
are
my
two
God.
wolves: a demented, incontinent wolf who just wants to die, and a deranged imperialist wolf who wants to commit genocide and start World War III. I think that's my
that's-
sense of Biden.
Sums it up.
Those are
Yeah,
the
I
two
think
Bidens.
Joe Biden actually absolutely knows that he's committing a genocide, and he also has no idea that he's just withdrawn from the presidential election.
Yes.
1,000%. Yes, those are the two things.
Those
are his two
the
wolves,
lucid,
yeah.
the lucid
So
part
it was
of
a
Joe
coup.
does
Probably
not
didn't
know
even know
that
the
he's
election was
withdrawn.
happening. He probably
Wait, so it
doesn't
was a
know the
coup
election is
then?
happening. Like he's so pumped full of pharmaceuticals whenever we see him. Like it is a Simpsons. It's the Simpsons joke how they extend his life
Yeah.
week by week on Friday
cruel.
evening. Like it is that. It's not a. It's got the same hand kind of hump thing going. Like
Weekend at Biden's.
Simpsons called the Trump presidency, but it also called Biden.
But this is gonna happen during the Trump presidency too.
Yeah.
Like Trump is also gonna descend into dementia because he's gonna be
Oh, yeah.
old. Like
Oh, I didn't
He's
think
lazy.
of that. That's true. That's
It's
gonna be
gonna-
awesome.
it's so weird. Like it's really something that the institutions of America can no longer produce people who can just get through the day or like
We're gonna have
Could
two
you imagine if
back-to-back
that
Mad
bullet
Kings.
landed, guys?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mikey. Could you imagine? I just have to say this. Could you imagine if that bullet landed?
Oh, that would have been the funniest day in America since Trump got COVID.
I don't understand how that could have not land. Like I'm just like I don't know. I
It
don't
was the
believe
ghost.
in that
It was
kind
the
of
angel
luck.
of
No, just-
Epstein who came down and protected him, like the meme.
Yeah.
Not
Epstein.
not the angel of history. The angel of history is actually Epstein. That's horrible. That's
Was it
terrible,
on
man.
purpose? Like, was that somebody who's like
It's
a
America.
brilliant shot and missed on
Yeah.
purpose? I don't know. I just don't know. I can't.
But look, that was last Saturday, and then we're a week later, and
Yeah.
Biden like withdraws. Like this isn't,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just been, I don't know.
Decades are happening.
That I
Yeah,
was
this
going to
is-
say the exact same thing. Amazing.
Like I'm still thinking
Well,
about
as
Hulk
far as-
Hogan.
as there was also
Hulk
this,
Hogan
like,
at the
hu-
RNC. I can't get
there
over
was
that.
also this human empathy thing that Piers Morgan was trying to do. Did you guys see? He was like he brought like a pro genocide guy like Destiny, you know that guy?
God.
He debated Benny Morris and Norman
Yeah.
Finkelstein. Finkelstein and Muin Ravani helped make Destiny a pundit, an Israel pundit. So Piers Morgan brought him on and said, "Do you condemn the shooting of Trump?" And Destiny was like, "No, I'm not going to condemn that in this audience." And so there was this whole thing, and he was trying to extract a condemnation from Destiny. And Destiny wouldn't do it because it's like it was like there was like this can't we all relate as a human being to Donald Trump, right? And that was like there's like a lot of that happening too with the like Trump people who were like, how can you be so inhuman as to, and it's like Trump, ordered the assassination of Soleimani. Like Trump, Trump, like, he talked about how he could go and shoot somebody. Remember last
On Fifth
election?
Avenue
He said he
and
could
still
shoot
get
somebody in Fifth
elected. Yeah.
Avenue and nobody would do anything about it. Like, it's not like they demand compassion of like not when they make a big show of not having compassion as like it's like a sign of their political.
There's still hundreds of families who don't have their kids back because they
Yeah.
got separated and caged because of Trump. Like,
Yeah.
fuck that guy.
Well, here's my question: what's worse, like Trump or like the people who enact the policies, or the political class who go there and cry when it's politically convenient, and then go silent when it's their turn to
It's
actually do
all
something?
just part of
Like,
one thing.
like
We can't separate and condemn one thing and
No.
whatever. It's all
but
part
it's also,
of the same
I just
thing.
mean that the scale of the sociopathy
Right.
is so grand.
Yeah.
Like the American political media class is so filled with sociopaths and psychopaths that they produce in the same, like maybe one generation apart, guys like Trump and people like AOC, who fundamentally, like, like notwithstanding their aesthetic, like, and sort of PR differences, they fundamentally align on like the basic core tectonics of American social life. That like the poor live here, the rich live here, US is an empire, we don't do this, we don't question Israel. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a strange, it's, US, I think the US imperialism will stand out that way, that it created these characters.
Well,
So
they
many
need-
of them too.
yeah. But they need, as a fiction writer, you need your characters to be orchestrated. They need to be different from one another so that the reader can tell who's who, and that, that they have different roles to play in the story. Now, rather than end on this note about American democracy, let me show you one last little thing we didn't get to talk about, which was all these notes that are going around on the internet, because after the Battle of Shuja'iyya, the fighters who enter the houses of residents, they leave a note saying, sorry, we took some of your food, sorry for using your house. And so there's all these little notes that the resistance fighters leave behind when they're forced to use a house that the residents have vacated.
Yeah. And that's been happening for 9 months.
Yeah. And
Someone should
Nasrallah
make a book of all
a
of them.
compilation. In
Mm.
2006, apparently Hezbollah fighters who went into a shop or something, they would actually leave an itemized receipt where they're like, we owe you the following
Thoughtful.
items that we took. So yeah, so I'll leave you on that note instead of American democracy, and we'll see you guys in the next Tanky Therapy.
Hey guys, take care.
Thanks, guys. Love you all.
Nice guys.
Always leave a note.
Always leave a note.